Police in Gqeberha are saying that there's still not much word looking into the investigation of the death, the assassination of Muhsin Hendricks several weeks ago. It is the murder of what is known and what was known as the first openly gay imam, not just in South Africa but the world, murdered last month, leaving Muhsin Hendricks leaving a legacy of advocacy for LGBTQI plus rights within Islam. Following his death, there was a group of prominent Muslims in South Africa, particularly within academia, signing a petition saying those who condone the murder, the assassination of Muhsin Hendricks, that they should introspect on themselves. After that petition, with the names of prominent Muslims in South Africa, another document being released by an organization who says beware of the LGBTQ promoters in South Africa, and then naming the signatories of that petition. And then Mamba Online, LGBTQI plus news website, reporting about a Cape Town imam who then condoned in a sermon last week, a Friday sermon, condoning and endorsing the killing of Muhsin Hendricks. Joining me now is a man who wants to be known only as Yacub. Yacub is a history teacher and a student of the late Imam Muhsin Hendricks. Good morning, Yacub. Hope you are well. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
I would have to ask you if you can put on record why you only want to be known by your first name. I understand it is an incredibly perilous, tense situation for many people at the moment.
Yeah, I suppose what you just said summarizes the matter quite effectively. It's just a matter of safety and precaution, not so much for myself, because I'm quite inspired by Imam Muhsin's contributions that he's made in inspiring bravery in people, but it's more rather for other people related around me, including family members, that I would prefer to stay safe, because as you've now said yourself, there are some orthodox or extremist elements out there that are willing to kill, so it's better to keep one's identity safe in these cases. And it won't be my first time that I'm dealing with conservative issues in a political or religious environment.
Maybe first remind us what space, what void Muhsin Hendricks leaves behind here in Cape Town, but also as inspiration for Muslims who are part of the LGBTQI plus community around the world. Yacub?
To be honest with you, Lester, I'm going to be quite frank. It's not a matter so much about the LGBT. Imam Muhsin was a Muslim first, before everything. His work was activism inside the LGBT, but the ultimate thing about Imam Muhsin was making Islam a more inclusive, compassionate, and mercy-based faith. It's quite sad that we've come to this point that a lot of people don't consider Islam that anymore. The religion is primarily those two things: compassion, mercy, and inclusivity, those three things. So I would firstly want to make that clear, that despite Imam Muhsin's hard work for members of sexual minorities and the LGBT, including himself being a gay person, the first and foremost thing for Imam Muhsin was his faith as a Muslim, and as an imam, as a religious leader. His work was for anyone, inside and outside of Islam. But to answer your question about what void he has left for I think Islam is poorer without him. I think the LGBT international community is poorer without him. And as one of his former students, for me, it was a deep sense of loss that only Allah can fill. So for me, yes, it is a grievous loss for South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa himself even said that South Africa has lost a champion of human rights because this is an issue of just being a decent human being.
So do you draw any solace from that? The South African Human Rights Commission labeling this also as a suspected hate crime. The president of this republic even putting out a statement decrying this particular incident. So is there any solace in that the impact of Muhsin's murder is that it raises the ongoing spotlight that hate and homophobia is still present amongst all ranks of our South African society, and one could argue growing worldwide?
Yeah, Lisa, you're right about that. There is definitely a global increase in violence and hate towards minority groups around the world, in particular people who identify as lesbian or gay, and so forth, But, I actually had a phone call last night with one of my close friends who is a former human rights lawyer from the South African Human Rights Commission. And he told me when he heard what was said by this sheikh in Cape Town, he says this is very dangerous. Firstly, because this is an influential man, a powerful man. He bears the title sheikh, which is quite shocking. So when a person of power is calling for violence or condoning the death of the brutal murder of another Islamic religious leader, an imam, there is something that the South African Human Rights Commission can investigate and look into, because you have a person of power, a person of authority calling for violence against a vulnerable minority group within the Islamic community. But the consequences of this would go beyond that of the Muslim community of Cape Town, of South Africa, and so forth. This has international ramifications. So if one thinks about it, it is just absolutely bizarre, because I joked with my friend and I said to him, you know what, if we remove gay people from the discussion and we just replace it with any other vulnerable minority, let's just say we replace it with, say, Muslims who have disabilities, or some of our sisters who perhaps choose to not wear their hijab, or some of them who do not wear it, who wear it incorrectly according to the sheikh's own interpretation of Islam, will this then mean that he's going to condemn them to death and they should be thrown off the highest buildings in Cape Town, or stoned to death, or burned alive? What either medieval punishment they can think of? For me, there is a very serious thing, and I'm happy to say that the South African Human Rights Commission's attention is drawn to it. But as a Muslim, this is not about the South African Human Rights Commission for me. For me, it's about us as Muslims, as a community. We have some serious reflection to do, some deep, deep soul searching to do as a collective religious community, because if we are going to allow the small groups of howlers like this sheikh who said what he said, to continue to threaten, to scare the rest of us into submission, we are going to see further death, and it is to the detriment of Islam. That none of these people have, for once in their life, this includes the ulama of South Africa, the Council of South Africa, who I think is a disgrace, by the way, for being able to condemn Imam Muhsin, but none of them condemned the Sheikh Jamil Adams' hateful speech of actually opening saying we should murder. I'll be honest, Lester, we as Muslims have really serious work to do when it comes to self-reflection. What has happened to our faith? What has happened to our values of mercy, compassion, kindness, regardless of other human beings' different views theologically, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin? Because this is another issue the Muslim community of South Africa has to come to terms with, is the deep-rooted anti-blackness and racism that I have seen with Muslims in South Africa. And let's just quickly stop at one more point. A lot of Muslims in the past election in 2024, statistics shown, voted, for example, for the Democratic Alliance in the past election, right? While the ANC is the party that is leading the banner for Palestine. But yet many Muslims were voting for the DA so that your pockets could be filled back home. So I'm saying that there is a moral, serious issue we are facing as the Ummah, and we really need to stop for a moment and reflect. instead of just condemning to death. Bear in mind, Lester, that this is the month of Ramadan. And I was not confused. I was not shocked by what the sheikh said. I was confused that this is a man of apparently of religious education who was able to say these hateful words during one of the most sacred months of the year, where we are supposed to celebrate the qualities of mercy, for example, So I'm quite disappointed by that.
Yacub, I have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Yacub is a history
Thank
teacher,
you.
student of the late Imam Muhsin Hendricks, talking about the broad implications of the murder of Muhsin Hendricks a month ago in Gqeberha.